Come on, connection. Good evening, everyone. This is Vera Sadler, your host of Tuesday Talk Live. Welcome to another broadcast, and I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. And again, I have another exciting guest. And I know you guys hear me say that every week, but I believe all the guests I bring on this show are exciting because God allows me to pick the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the best in the world. And this month, as I told you, we're highlighting our Black History Month and those who I believe are influencers that I believe should be the influencers, the impact makers, those who are making a change in the world, the ones I want to highlight. People I know, friends I know, whether I've known them a long time, a short time, but believe me, the ones I believe that I want to bring to the forefront, the young men, the young women, the women, the older men that I believe are the ones that our young people should be looking up to in this world, not the superstars that we can't reach, but the people that we have been connected with. And this young lady that I'm bringing to our show tonight, her name is Jaye, and she's been on the show a while ago, and she talked about her ministry, her coaching business, her organization that deals with mothers. And tonight, I want Elle to come back and talk to us during this time, Black History Month, as we're going to be launching next month into Women's Month. So I really think it's very important, Nell, that you are here tonight. Is so appropriate because Black History Month, being a young Black woman, and also as we going to go into March into Women's Month, you're springboarding us right into a perfect topic. And tonight we're going to talk about pain to possibility, and you're gonna talk more about that and
Yes,
about the longer version of the topic. But
yes.
Elle, tonight, thank you so much for taking out of your time to be here with me tonight to talk to our listeners and to give a just to be here. So I am going to do, my folks know that I got to view it on Facebook while I'm talking to you, while I'm going
Yes.
live, so I can communicate with everybody. And then Elle, take a moment, introduce yourself to the guests, tell them where you hail from, and we're going to jump right into this conversation because I want you to have plenty enough time to talk to the people tonight.
Thank you so much, Vera, for this opportunity to be here. And thank you all for watching live. Yes, I am LJ, and I hail from Atlanta, Georgia. I am a empowerment coach, a speaker, and I support mothers. You all powerful, resilient moms who are holding it down every day, every week, every month, all year long. You are putting in the work, and I am here to support you, encourage you, move you forward from the pain of overwhelm to the possibility of being organized and energized throughout your day, because we all know that having the second job, third job, fifth job of being a mother is not
Mhm.
easy. Even if it's your only job, it doesn't matter. You are a mother, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. The future is literally in your hands.
And I appreciate you saying that because lots of times we as women, we don't talk about the weight and that, everybody thinks, well, it's your responsibility. And it is, but we don't talk about how we feel about it. So as we go into this, maybe you can, that right there, just your opening was an encouragement for some woman to say, hey, some women are working one, two, three jobs to support as mothers. So thank you for being empathetic with women who and mothers who are doing the best that they can, who are doing all that they can to be that mother. Because sometimes people just brush it off as, girl, go do what you got to do.
Right.
Yeah, but in
And
the midst of that, go ahead, hon.
yeah, so what with that, the reason I call it a job is because that's how I see it. That
Hmm.
I might say some things today that go counter to what some people believe and how we've been
Hmm.
conditioned. And it's because of the journey that I've been on, because of the mothers that I have interacted with, whether it's from my personal experience or having conversations with them. It is it's important for us to gain a different perspective on what it means to have the responsibility of
Hmm.
motherhood.
Yeah.
And I am being very intentional. I may slip up through here, but I am being very intentional
Mm-hmm.
of not saying that that's all, like using am. I am a mother. Yes, that is a part of my beingness. However, I'm Elle. Full stop.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. And just like I have a outside of my home job, I have an inside of the home job, which is mother. And whether
Mm-hmm.
you have additional roles of employee, mother, wife, volunteer, podcaster, entrepreneur, all of those are roles. And
Yes.
to the emotional aspect of what you're talking about, ladies, emotion is your superpower. When it's not that superpower, it is when we are in that overwhelm, when we are in that pain of anxiety and stress. That is taking
Mm-hmm.
us out of our superpower and putting us in a place where we end up depleted and tired and frustrated and disorganized. And that's really not where we want to be. I know that's not where I want to be, but we end up there sometimes, and that is painful because a result of that is you disconnect from who you are. You disconnect from your children. The connection's not as authentic as you would want it to be.
Man. So as we go into this conversation, I really want you to go back and talk about, because you mentioned your journey. So I
Yes.
want you to tell us, you don't have to go deep into your journey, but a little bit about your journey, because I want people to really understand why you can speak from pain to possibility. Um, because they'll say, well, that's just her. Maybe that's her, but you have experienced some things. So tell us a little bit, Elle, about your journey. And I love how you just said, I'm Elle.
Yes.
Girl, I'm feeling you this year. I am feeling you. I've been feeling you for about a year and a half because that's where I am. I'm all this plus, and you got to accept the whole package. I'm not just segregated to here. So tell
Right.
us a little bit, Elle, about your journey and why you believe that you can take all of that and see
Mhm.
possibility.
Well, thank you for that wonderful question, Vera. And I believe as women, we have so many different experiences in our lives, from childhood to
Mm-hmm.
teenage years to young adult to adulthood. And what I heard was, John Maxwell talk about it's not learning from your past, it's more gaining insight from reflecting on your past. So, what I would do is I would turn around, look at my past, and say, oh, I need to learn from it. I would get stuck in some of the emotions of it, from in the wounds of the things that happened to me that were beyond my control. I could get stuck there, right? Um, and then wonder like why am I sad? Why am I angry? Why am I frustrated? Why did my child, who just did something just as innocently as spill a glass of water, trigger me? Kind of thing.
Mm,
um and it's because it really is when we don't reflect on the wounds that we have and figure
mm,
out, okay, what is that button that gets pushed. Then we can end up saying things to ourselves in such a way that brings us down. We could say things unintentionally to our children by, like, for example, how I was raised was, it was very strict, it was very rigid, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do as I say,
Not
don't
as I do.
yeah, not as I do. There you go. We all know that saying. That's what would happen to me as I grew up. And then my dad would talk about the golden rule, which is whoever makes the gold makes the rules. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's actually the golden rule, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and that does a number on a developing young mind. And
Mm-hmm.
I brought that unintentionally into my job as a mother. because of the stress of keeping food on the table, interacting with the now former spouse, because I had that job too of being a wife. But then, that had to shift. So those different transitions occurred, and it went from a two-parent home, the dream that I was living, to then transitioning to a restructured family for my children, which is not something I ever wanted them to have. And there was, those kryptonite of emotions of shame and guilt that came up. But I got to turn around and reflect and say, what has me here? And a lot of it was my own belief system that I had to rip up and say, I saw what my mother did, how she had the weight of the world on her shoulders. And she was mother, she was wife, but she wasn't herself. She wasn't Darlene,
Wow.
you know? And it broke my heart because I know that my mother's a strong person in her own right, in addition to having a very strong father as well. But it was almost one up, one down kind of thing. But instead of a full partnership between both of them, again, turned around and reflected. It's what they experienced, and it's learning from the legacy of
Mm,
prior generations, because it's not just them. I saw that same thing in church where I was
yes.
raised. I saw that same thing in going to banquets at the university that I attended, where I would see how the wives of the men would interact with them. It would be almost like they would disappear and shrink into the back. And I'm
Wow.
like, what in the world? You are a judge. What in the world are you doing shrinking into the back of your also very successful husband? Like, what is that? All of those different teachings. But, and I believe that's what leads so many women to that overwhelm, because we can be strong outside of the home, right? Because I myself, I went from entry level to manager in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That I never even celebrated that accomplishment because I was so busy. Like, okay, yeah, I did that. It's bringing in funds to the home. Let me go get food on the table. Let me make sure
Mm-hmm.
that my children, if they're sick or whatever, I can tend to them. Another thing that I would do is I would teach my children how to take care of themselves. But
Mm.
sometimes because I'm so tired, I would say, oh, just let me do it myself. I don't have time for this. I know other mothers can you relate to that, Vera? Is that something that's go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, man, I'm listening to so much that you're saying. You've said such a mouthful, and I hope our listeners, whether they're listening tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, that they grab this message, because you just said such a mouthful. Elle, sometimes I come on with the guests and I don't know what they're going to say, because we don't pre-script this. We don't pre-script the conversation. I always tell my guests, listen, I'm gonna let you go for it, and whatever you say, I'm just gonna go for whatever. I'm just listening. And you just said such a mouthful. And I put there, and I'm reading what I put in the comments. Transitions and traditions in our lives can sometimes be the kryptonite. I love when you said that. Can be the kryptonite if we don't deal with our own belief systems. And the belief systems are some things that, and when I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking, and I heard you then say, hey, I did this, I didn't even celebrate, and how people shrink behind. And when I was listening you talk about that, I'm thinking about, and it may not even be something that we're always comfortable with, or we always want, or we always expect, but we fall into these routines and behaviors, maybe because it's just what it is. Hey, I have to work, I have to get food on the table, I have to get the kids ready, I have to do this, and I've been there, I've done that, and then you wake up years later like, what the heck, what's going on? I'm here. And then you got to figure out, how do you get out of that overwhelm that you're going to talk about more, like, because you feel so overwhelmed, you don't know. And then that's when the pain, I think for me, that's when you get frustrated, and then other things seem to come in. For me, when I was in those places, because I was in that robotic mode, I don't know what else to call it. It was like robotic, the overwhelm and the stress and the frustration. Other stuff started oozing out of me that maybe should not have.
Right. And
Um,
what it's not a should not have, actually. I'm learning the words that we get to shift away from. We get to shift away from
okay.
shoulds. And because I like reframing beliefs. That's what I've been doing this my on my journey is reframing my beliefs and digging deeper into the things that I actually do believe. Okay. So I have a belief system that says, okay, if someone does something against you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a matter of retaliating in kind.
Mm-mm.
Instead, you turn around and you speak life into that person instead of cursing them or being
Mm-hmm.
angry and matching where they are.
Right.
That is the way I was conditioned was if you're going to come at me, I'm going to come at you. And I believe that that's actually the way society has
Mm-hmm.
conditioned us as well is go toe to toe. But recently, well, anyways, regardless of the time, I recognized something that I've been told over and over again is don't match, lift in love, right? So when I came across that again, I recognized what that means. For me, it means that someone who is coming at you with aggression, with animosity even, instead of matching them, the reason you don't is because whatever button they are pushing in you, they are
Mm-hmm.
making you aware of a place of weakness that you get to strengthen. And I believe that's what our children do for us is they remind us of places where we as mothers we get to address it. We get to reframe it from being the burden, the heavy weight, the putting on of something, right? Like the trauma, the
That's
hurt,
good.
the
That's
wound.
good.
We get to now take that wound and say it's time to heal it. It's time to heal it. What can as I reflect on how I got this wound as a teenager, as a child with limited knowledge, how can I deal
Mm-hmm.
with it now with more knowledge? Or if I'm still lacking in knowledge, who can I go to get support? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
people coming to you, Vera, as a grief coach, because that's also part of the journey in what I've experienced. I've experienced
Mm-hmm.
grief. Both of my parents are deceased, no longer living.
Mm.
One, I don't know if that's okay to say on Facebook,
It's, it's
deceased.
it's absolutely okay. Look, you can say whatever you need to.
All right. So both of my parents are deceased. And in reflecting on that, I get to reframe my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
I say reframe, it's not moving it into a fantasy land. No, it is being able to look at the legacy that my parents gave me,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is a legacy of lessons learned, whether it is a legacy of love. I get to reflect on that and say,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I take to help me with my overwhelm. I take
Mm-hmm.
the lessons learned and apply it to my way of parenting my children now. And
Powerful.
my dad loved to play. My dad loved to joke. Okay, he was also a very serious man. But during the Super Bowl, I got up and I danced, and I like my my child looked at me up and down like, "What in the world do you do?" And I was like, "You don't know? I haven't always just been your mama. Like, come on
Uh-huh.
now."
Uh-huh. Okay, right.
It's like that whole thing of playing,
Mm-hmm.
allowing, as mothers, instead of staying in that overwhelm and that chaos, being able
Mm-hmm.
to play, it lifts the energy, right? It allows us to shake off the things that don't serve us. So taking that love and laughter the love and laughter legacy from my dad, bringing that forward with me now.
That's
The
real good.
part that I get to leave behind is his yelling. Okay. That dude could just yell. He would raise his voice. It would shake the whole house. And I can smile about it because that was a learning that I brought with me now to say I hated that
Mm-hmm.
because the energy from him yelling, I hated. Okay. I hated it. And how many times do we do that as parents? We bring from the past to the present something we said, we promised ourselves we would never do to our children.
Mm-hmm.
But are we doing it? And as we do it, is that also contributing to the chaos and to the overwhelm? That's a question that each person gets to answer for themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
and then and it may be a very painful, um, wanting to avoid kind of question to ask yourself that. But again, uncovering the wound, allowing the wound to see light, it's healing.
Yes.
And in healing, there is pain. And in that pain, it's supposed to get better. If it gets worse, then you're not in healing. But so it because um all right, in my family there's lots of medical professionals. Okay.
Okay.
I am not one of them. I am not. But one of my sisters was sharing with one of my children that, hey, you might be sick right now. um, the thing that you get to understand is there is a pain that is supposed to stay where it is right now, but it will get lower and lower and lower.
Mm-hmm.
That healing pain. And then she explained, she later explained that if the pain actually gets worse, that's pain that needs to be addressed. Okay. So we're talking about moving from pain to possibility. So if you're moving to possibility, that means you are exposing your wounds, getting the necessary ointment, treatment that you need, counseling,
Mm-hmm.
coaching, mentorship, being in community. Those are all things that help lessen the pain
So I
as
have
you
to
move.
stop you there for a minute
Okay. Into
because, man, when we're talking to individuals and we're sharing, and I know people are going to listen to this because there's some people online now that they're hearing what you're saying, and man, this is so good. But when we're talking about moving the pain, and I connected the dots when you were talking about, so I got to go back a little bit further because you were
okay.
talking about bringing the things from our past.
Yes.
Man, this was so good. And you were saying we have we can choose what we bring forward. Oh my gosh, we could choose. And you said you brought in the play, the laughter, the dance. You did not like the yelling. And I love the way you said that because I deal with a lot of people when I'm teaching. I teach
Yes.
anger management. I'm a certified anger management teacher. So I've been
Okay.
teaching anger management for about 10 years. And I always have to peel back the layers for people. People say, oh, I'm not angry, but your behavior, right? And when you peel it back, I find people that because their parents, the way their parents treat them, their parents were angry, abusive, whatever. But I love how you said, I choose the piece that I want to bring forward. But a lot of people, they don't choose it. They just bring it all forward. Oh,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to highlight that piece and remind people what you just said. You don't have to bring all of that forward. You can bring forward the pieces. It's almost like eat the meat and spit out the bones. We don't
Right.
have to take in the bone part that's going to tear up our innards and make us sick all over again. Bring forth the part that works. And you said we need to shake off the things that don't serve us. So if that hard part, if that abusive part, if that angry part is not serving us, leave it where it was and just bring that forth. So thank you for sharing that. And then you said, well, but some of that is going to be painful and you have to expose the pain to heal. And I wanted to just have you just dwell on that a little bit more because you said it's a wound and it needs light, it needs to be exposed. But haven't you encountered? I know I have. In coaching, we encounter a lot of people because in coaching, it's not just we're not counselors, we're not therapists, but coaches still deal with a lot of people that have a lot of pain. And I
Yes.
think a lot of our coaching and trying to empower people, trying the first part before we can push people forward, we have to go back. And I don't know about you, but haven't you encountered a lot of people with the pain, but they want to cover that up. They kind of like don't expose that area.
Right.
So
And
what do you think about that? Because I know I've dealt with people that just don't tap into that. Leave that there where it is, and let's just try to work around it.
right. And as mothers, it's a conditioning, right? And I
Okay.
believe there are studies showing that even millennial mothers, I think it's like, I forgot the percentage. Oh, good grief. This is what's important to remember percentages. But nonetheless, a lot of millennial mothers are hiding the stress,
Mm-hmm.
the overwhelm from being exposed, right? And the studies show that the reason they are hiding it, it's out of fear of being seen as weak, as not enough, of not being capable, right? And what I want to support mothers in is recognizing you are powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to recognize that even powerful people experience times of pain. So let's say you are at work and you are a CEO, you are rocking it, and you're just thumbing through all your papers. Next thing you know, you get a paper cut. You're a person with a paper cut. A paper cut hurts. You're still that CEO. You are still that person
Yes.
who worked all of those years to get to the position that you have. You just now get to experience the pain of a paper cut. It's the same with mothers. You have a role in your house where you are the CEO. And as that CEO, you may have a preteen, a teen, someone learning how to potty train. That can end up being chaotic and stressful and exhausting to stick with your child as they grow and develop naturally instead of trying to shield and guide and control
Mm-hmm.
their development in a way that does not benefit your child. So it's okay to experience pain. It is okay to even expose your pain, but you get to expose your pain in the way that is beneficial to you,
Wow.
because this world is full of people who judge, right?
Yes, ma'am, it
Whether
is.
whether they intend to or not, it's you can feel it, right? You can feel when you are making a move that other people are like, wait, what? You're doing what?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so for example, when I had to restructure my family, i.e., get a divorce, um, that was the looks from that, right? Because again, with my belief system, we were taught don't get divorced.
Don't divorce.
That's not something that you do. But in my experience, what I had to recognize was I wasn't loving myself. And then I was like, wait
Mm-hmm.
a minute, I deserve to be loved differently. I love myself better than this, right? And made a request. It wasn't met, got support. Okay. And I made the choice, I made the decision and turned that off. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
the I had a church leader come to me and say, "Well, you made the decision to marry that person. You need to stay married." Well, that sounds like
Good for you.
captivity. That sounds like captivity to me, and I get to say no, thank you. Um, and so I said no, thank you, and I took a different path. Um, it was not easy at all. It was actually quite chaotic and led to lots of disorganization. Um, and then in trying to get to settle my household, um,
Mm-hmm.
it was still like that chaotic thing that I got to figure out. Okay, forget everybody else's judgment. Who is Elle authentically?
Yeah,
That
so you've had to. Somebody is chatting in the comments, Elle, that they're so proud of you, and I am too, because your ability to stand up for Elle and for your children, because when we're in unhealthy situations, everything around us is unhealthy. Um, so I'm proud of her too. And by you making that, you were able to say, look, I'm important. My life matters. And because what you did, you're now able to do. For those who are just joining, I am here live with my friend LJ. She is the host from pain of overwhelm to possibility. She's hosting a free masterclass. She hosts free masterclass on from pain of overwhelm to the possibility of organized and energized. I put the registration link in our Facebook chat. I'm looking to the side because I want you to see I'm pointing that I put the Facebook link. I put the link in the Facebook chat. I'm also going to put a link if you want to register. Look, I'm not one of those coaches where I'm like, oh, I'm the only coach alive. No, I have friends. I don't coach mothers. I'll coach a mother if she just say, hey, I need you to coach me. But I do a different style of coaching than Elle does. Elle's my girl. Elle coaches mothers. That's her talent. That's her gift. That's her calling. My coach is grief counseling and empowerment, transformational coaching, peer coaching, career coaching in a different way. And we bounce off of each other. So I want to send all you mothers her way, because some of you are single mothers, some of you are just mothers who feel overwhelmed, like she's saying. So I'm going to put a link also to her calendar. Get on her calendar. Don't stay there by yourself, because she's putting truth to power tonight. She's laying it down, and I need you to connect with her, because Elle, what you're saying is so truthful, and it makes no sense that we stay in the dark by ourselves. I mean, I've heard of women laying in bed depressed because
I
they
was,
get so. I don't
yeah,
know if you ever had a time. Let me ask you this,
yeah.
because when you're talking about pain, I remember this was in my previous marriage, but I remember a time when I got so sick and so overwhelmed that all I can do is lay in the bed with my head under the blanket and just wish that somebody knew what I was going through. And it wasn't just about the marriage, but it was about the overwhelm that you're talking about. And I would think, I can't tell anybody, but I really wish somebody knew and would come to my rescue.
Right. And having this conversation is important, Vera, because let's be honest, it was grief. It was a
Yes.
form of grief. When your marriage ends, it's a form of grief. When something in your life changes, i.e., your child goes from child to preteen, I think there's some grief there.
Oh gosh.
All right. There is some grief there. You are losing I hate to use the word, but you're losing your child as you knew them at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you get a divorce, you are losing
Mm-hmm.
a part of who you were when you were
Yes.
connected to that other person. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to experience the emotions that you
Mm-hmm.
experience, and because they're valid. As women, that, as I said earlier, is our superpower. Our emotions is a superpower. Okay. So when we are laying in the bed with our heads covered, not wanting to give up, having these thoughts like, I'm a bad mother. How in the world am I going to make it? I divorced the dad. We're not together. What are my children's uh, friends' parents going to say? Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
am I able to continue to take my children to their events? Wait a minute, there's one of me now, multiple of them. How am I going to do it? That is a painful thought.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is a want to wrap up because you don't see possibility, because your mind is on the judgment, your mind is on the lack and the loss, instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, it's valid, okay, to feel what I'm feeling right now. But we,
Mm-hmm.
again, we want to hide it, we want to cover it up. When we do that, the pain gets worse. That's not healing, that's
Mm-hmm.
hiding.
So,
We
Elle,
get,
are you saying addressing the pain is what launches people into possibility?
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it
I
is.
want the listeners to hear you clearly, because I that's what I'm hearing, that when we address the pain, we that's how we move from our pain. That's how we get to possibility. Can
It
you
is.
go ahead? I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I don't want to
And
run out of time before we get to this possibility. I want us to
right.
talk about.
And we actually need
I
to
mean,
get to
we have
part.
time, but I want us to get there.
Yes, we're there. We're there. So, as I was saying, if you do not heal it, it will get worse. As
Hmm.
my sister was sharing with her niece, my daughter, um, the need to pay attention to what she is feeling. And as mothers, how many times are we told to push down,
Hmm.
push aside what we feel, push
Hmm.
aside our needs because our children come first? That
Yes.
is like telling someone with an open, gaping wound, you're not hurt, while their guts are just spilling out. I know that's graphic, but stay with me here. So your guts are spilling out, you're holding your guts in, and you're doing things one handed. How many
Mm.
times do other mothers feel that that's what they're doing? Like
Yep.
they've given so much of themselves that it's just busting out. And it's
Yep.
an unrealistic way of operating in the world. So now we get to say, nope, I need time for
Hmm.
me to address my wounds. Mothers, it's okay. It's not selfish to prioritize yourself. It will feel painful initially because it's something different. And what people will do is they'll try to shift your pain into shame and guilt. You have a
Mm.
choice. Do you allow that or not? Are you tired of the overwhelm? Are you tired of pouring
Hmm.
so much of yourself out that there's nothing left? It's okay to prioritize yourself. Thank you, Vera. It is okay. It's focus on you, and let's reframe it, and let's begin to celebrate ourselves. Again, it may feel foreign, but it's the pain, the discomfort rather, that is leading you to something that is possible. Because as we were talking about earlier, play. how many mothers recognize that play is power? There's power in
Not many
play.
of us.
Not
Not
many
many
of
of
us,
us.
because we're so stuck with do this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to sit and laugh and joke and
Mm-hmm.
allow our children to see ourselves. And again, laughter is literally medicine. It
Mm-hmm.
shakes you on the inside, right? It really massages your internal organs when you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, okay, here's another story for you. There was a time when I was on the phone with my brother. We were going down memory lane regarding my mother, and we loved how she laughed. It brought us so much joy for her to laugh. Okay. And my brother was sharing with me how he would make her laugh, and she would laugh so hard that she would talk and you couldn't understand what she was saying. When he touched that memory, I was literally on the floor laughing. Okay. But it scared my children because that was not how they were accustomed to me showing up. And my daughter came downstairs and she was like, Mommy, are you okay? And then she recognized that I was laughing and she's like, Oh, you must be on the phone with Uncle. And I was like, Yes, yes, I am. And to this day, she'll still bring it up. And that happened like 2 years ago.
Oh
But
wow.
the power of laughing
Yes.
and what it
Wow.
does for us and our children. Like even right now, I am laughing about my laughing and just how that just lights me up. Again,
Mm-hmm.
it's those things that we get to step into our authentic selves, because that's authentically me. And it I reflected back and I was like, oh my gosh, my child is doesn't know that her mom loves to laugh, that her mom loves to joke, you know?
Right.
And I had to begin to understand how I was showing up. And stepping into that understanding, though it was uncomfortable, the more I did it, it felt so awkward. But I was like, wait a minute, but this is actually me. And
Mm.
it's
Hmm.
like, wait a minute, I lost this part of me because I was so busy trying to check off a list. And
Wow.
I got to reflect and just say, I've got to imagine what my life would be like to be authentically me. So, mothers, imagine, think back
Hmm.
to those times where you laughed, where you played, feel it in your body, feel the tingles,
Wow.
right? The shivers. It's like, oh, oh my
Yeah, because
goodness.
I'm sitting here thinking about how many women have forgot. They don't even know themselves. All they know is I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a worker, right?
Right.
I'm a minister for somebody. I'm all this. But if you were ask them, what do you like to do?
I don't
Hmm.
know.
Where do you want to go? You make the choice. No, what
Yeah.
is it that you want? What is it that you like? What is it that brings you joy? Well, my kids like to eat. No,
No.
that's not what I asked you. And so I'm listening to you and say, so many people have lost themselves at the expense of pleasing others that we forget. What's your favorite color? Well, I always buy my daughter this color purple because I always buy purple because my daughter and I. No, what we're saying, you hone
Yeah.
in on you. And Elle, that's so sweet. Um, Man, if some women were sitting here listening to the advice to be free to be, just free to be.
Yes.
Man, that's what I was hearing when you were talking and you were saying that. I'm going to let you finish and keep going because I just want the women, if anybody listening to this podcast, I may have my eyes closed because it's for me, it's meditation.
Yes.
And it's
And
like, ladies, listen to her voice, Close your eyes for a moment and allow yourself to meditate like you're in a bubble bath and you're allowing to sink in and be free to be.
Right.
Mm,
So just breathe in deeply.
man, that's so sweet.
Exhale deeply and do that two more times. Just inhale. Last time.
How many of us done that in a while?
And just feel what that is to have your lungs full of air, because we're moving, you could be moving so fast that you don't breathe
Hmm.
deep. And
Hmm.
those three breaths in and out where you also exhaled fully,
Hmm.
because sometimes we hold back
Mm.
because we're like, oh, I don't want to lose all my breath. But what does that
Wow.
really symbolize? But
Lord have mercy.
if we let all of that breath out, guess what? You get a you get to breathe in a new breath, and you could breathe it in more fully to fill yourself with the freshness of oxygen that you
Hmm.
need.
How sweet.
And it's a release, not a letting go. I had troubles with that terminology of letting go. It is a voluntary release, because to me, to tell someone to let go is a command, and I'm not about commanding anyone to do anything against their will. You get to release it yourself. And everyone comes to an awareness of what you need in
Mm.
your time, and taking this time to imagine what it is to have a home, like, of that's organized, where you have a schedule, not a rigid one, but a schedule where you know what you get to do on a daily basis, and how you get to serve your children and love your children and be that example for your children, and begin to team up and partner with
Hmm.
children to say, hey, mommy wants to show you this. Like, this is how, how you said you love my enchiladas. Watch me make them, and
Yes.
talk to me. Tell me about your day. I'm listening. And then, as the mother, like, oh, thank you for sharing your day with me. Let me share my day with you. And your children are like, oh, she's sharing her day with me. Not only does
It
she
takes
want,
away the overwhelm, right?
yes, because you're releasing age appropriately, ladies, to your children to be able to say, today I did something wonderful. I had this meeting, and yes, it may have been challenging and frustrating for
Hmm.
me today, but this is how I made it through that meeting.
Wow.
Because sometimes, as mothers, the only people we get to talk to sometimes is our children. But if we can model what it is to share with them how we make it through challenging days, then they
Mm.
get to see from us, oh, mommy had a conversation with that person who offended her, right? But before she had that conversation, she took a break. She went for a walk and did something healthy for herself before she, you know, did her problem solving. She did a coping skill first, then came back and communicated authentically and openly with that person,
Hmm.
showing
Hmm.
her child what it means to have a conversation. Because guess what? They're children now, but they are watching. They are
Yes.
people with their own purpose, with their own pathway. So imagine what it is as a mother to be so organized and energized through your day that you have the capacity to model what it is to relate one person to another, age appropriately
Yes.
with your children. Because,
Yes.
and you get to continue these conversations lovingly. And you also have opportunities to move from yelling to something different. I did what my dad did. That's the way I started. Then I was like, oh, I learned, I received coaching, I received um I read different books
Mm-hmm.
so you can understand the importance of child development at the various ages that my children were.
Yes.
Because yeah, the divorce sucked, the restructuring of the family sucked, but I'm grateful for it because it opened up what I got to work on inside of Elle. And once I worked on it inside of me, that meant that I did not pass on my pain to my children.
Oh, absolutely.
I stopped parenting from pain. And now I am parenting from what is possible, getting organized, getting my energy back. It's a step by step process. I am learning to move through it faster, and don't allow anybody to rush you, but also don't just sit slow. Don't be slow about it. Once you're aware, now do something. Okay.
When
And
we know better, we do better, right?
yes. And sometimes when we do better, we get to do better with others. You can
Yes.
you cannot do it by yourself. So Vera, when you were talking about laying in that bed, covers over your head, what
Mm-hmm.
helped you get out?
Honestly, it was my faith at that time because I didn't have a coach like you who was there pushing and who was a resource because this was so many years ago. I was in my early 20s. And I wish, my Lord, I wish I had someone like you that was there for me. And that's why I'm pushing those who are watching this episode to really reach out to you to get the support they need. We're so blessed in this time frame that we have mentors and we have coaches. Back then, all I could do was ball up. I remember times balling up in a ball, like in a
Hmm.
fetal position, crying my eyes out, praying. But then I had my babies, and you probably remember feeling like this at time. I had my babies, so I had to
Hmm.
shake it off, get up the next day, dust it off like nothing was wrong. Um, and so I did that until I could actually press through my faith. And for anybody who knows, my name Vera actually means faith. That's
Awesome.
what Vera means. But that has been my sustaining force in just about everything I have done. Um, God has been a keeper for me. I'm one of those people when I went through my divorce, I'm remarried to a wonderful man now. But when I went through my divorce, I had the same thing. How dare you divorce? How would, but I know I heard the voice of God. It was time to go. It
Yes.
was probably the best thing I did in my life because it was so unhealthy for 20 years. Um, but Elle, there were some things I went through before. Afterwards, I felt I was just free. I was just
Right. Right.
freedom. But before that, um, but I didn't have someone like you that would give me. I had spiritual leaders, but even then, you didn't just expose all of your. I didn't expose everything. I exposed some things, but I never exposed the weight of what and the weight of the overwhelm. I would just dust myself off and keep going. I had babies to feed, like you said. I had food to put on the table. I had a job. I had to keep it going. So that's what I did. But now there's resources, so many resources. There's so much help. There are individuals like you that are putting it out there on blast.
Right.
We didn't have social media like that back then, but
No.
we have it out there where there are people who say, I am here for you for help. So I really, 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 I so much appreciate what you're doing and what you're saying, and that those who need the help can get the support.
Right. And Vera, with what you now do as a grief coach, that also supports women going through various stages, because there's so many of us who have gone through divorce. And I want to
Mhm.
ask you a question. I know this, you typically would ask me a question, but I want to ask you a question if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, what led you to want to do grief coaching?
I will say, I see it, a lot of people in pain covering it up and really no outlet. You know, one of the guests that's watching us even tonight, we were just talking about so many people will not just pull back. We wear this mask. You have a master class coming up, and I have a women's conference coming up at the end of May. A friend and I are talking. We're doing a overnight retreat. This is off the cuff, ladies, and if we have to go past our hour, we will. But because so many of us, as you're just saying, we just cover up. So I have a class, I have an overnight women's retreat. It's going to be a very intimate, because again, we don't share, we don't say. But the theme of it is removing the mask, taking the
Yes.
mask off. We thought about a Mardi Gras theme. Everybody wears these little masks, but
Yes.
the theme of the conference is unveiling the mask, uncovering the real me. Because, and that's what led me to getting that, becoming a certified. So for those out there who say, "Oh, she just talks about grief," no, I am a certified. I have right up there on the wall. I'm trying to point to it right there. I'm a board certified life coach, master. I have my certification as a grief coach as well. But I did it, Elle, you're asking, because I saw so many people in pain,
Right.
and grief was overwhelming. Loss. And people think, oh, just it's not just loss of a family member, loss in a job. I had someone that worked with me, and when I moved her desk to another part of the office, she couldn't function in her job anymore.
Oh,
And
wow.
it took for me to realize she was grieving. She was
Yes.
grieving not being able to communicate with other coworkers the way she could. And I was like, first, as a manager, I'm like, what is wrong with her? Why is she
Right.
behaving the way she is? But then I had to tap in. She's grieving the loss of her sociability with the individuals that she worked with for this whole year.
Yes.
I had to make a strategic move but she was literally in grief. She wound up leaving the whole department because she
Wow.
couldn't take it. So grief is major, and people grieve a whole lot of things,
Yes,
and
they
we
do.
don't see it. Sometimes we don't even recognize it.
We don't. But being able to come to a coach like you, Vera, whether it is a retirement, because that's a form of grief,
Mhm.
divorce, whether your child is leaving home to go to
Empty
college
nesters.
or boarding school, however your child is leaving, or even just moving from, as I said, from child to teenager, um, it's okay to have conversations
Mhm.
with a
Mhm.
grief coach. It doesn't have to be forever, but it allows you to have a conversation with Vera to engage
Mhm.
and connect with that powerful part of yourself, which is your emotions. Your emotions,
Mhm.
they're not
Mhm.
bad, they're just emotions. They give you information. That's what
Mhm.
they give you. And
Yes.
having conversations with Vera about that grief, she can support you with understanding the emotions that you're going through, to help you
Mhm.
understand you're normal. There's nothing wrong
Yes.
with you. It's part of your human condition. It's part of your human condition, and
Yes.
you cannot escape our humanity. There's so
No.
much that
And so people might wonder, Elle, why we're going so heavy on this tonight and with this conversation, and with it being Black History Month, right? Because we started out the top of the hour. It's
exists.
Black History Month, and we want to highlight, but our people fail to realize the need for what we're talking about.
Right. This is
And
true.
I want to go back to the fact that it is Black History Month. And that's why we're highlighting and we're saying, get the help. Go to your coach. Tap in. Again, I put Elle's information in the chat. You guys see my information. It's scrolling across the screen. Um, but we're highlighting this during Black History Month. Women, Women's Month is coming up. This is why we're highlighting this for you, because for some reason, our culture says it's taboo to get help.
Right.
Oh, we're
Yes.
crazy. No, you're not. And Elle, you just said it. Your emotions can be your superpower. Your emotions are real. They're realistic. I am so thankful for what you have shared with our guests tonight, because too often we're told not to. We're told to bury it. We're told put it on a shelf. So I really, really appreciate your authenticity, your transparency, and what you've shared. If you had to leave our guests with one really, really prevailing thought tonight, what would it be?
The prevailing thought is, we can choose to parent from possibility rather than pain.
Yeah.
And I really I really want, desire all mothers to be able to work with your children,
Mm-hmm.
guide them, be in charge, connect with your children heart to heart, not just reward them if they do what you say, but
Mm-hmm.
even reward them and play just because. Your
Mm-hmm.
children are also stressed and overwhelmed, and stress meeting overwhelmed, tornado. um, but instead, parenting from a place that's organized, where you have energy to play with your children, because that's what they want. I was listening to Dr. Gabor Mate, who was saying that being outside and playing with your children is crucial for their development. So that's what I would love to leave mothers, and play, possibility, organized, and meet me on the 13th, pre Valentine's Day, for the masterclass from the
Yes.
pain
Guys,
of.
go to her link, register. And if you can't make the masterclass, make sure you set a time. Click on the link for her calendar. It is in the chat. If you didn't make it, if you watched us on LinkedIn, I will go back on LinkedIn. I'll drop it in the chat there. If you didn't catch us on Facebook, I will drop it in the YouTube link. But please make sure you connect with Elle somehow, whether it's through Facebook. Her name is there, her organization is there, you can see it here. But please make sure, mothers, that you connect with her and you get the help you need. Elle, I am so grateful to you, friend. It's so
I'm,
good to connect with you again,
yeah,
and I am just so glad that you took out time tonight to be with us. Thank you, guys. This is Vera Sattler with Tuesday Talk Live, and we will see you again next week as we bring another guest on for Black History Month, and to also influence our young people to see. Ladies, don't you see, young girls, you see, you could be more than what other people do. You could be an entrepreneur, you could be a mother, you can be a businesswoman, and you can excel. Elle just showed you just how. So we'll see
thank
you
you, dear.
again on Tuesday Talk Live. Have a great night.
Thank you.